announced this morning that they are willing to support the GST rebate bill, the relief bill. And I wonder what you make of that and why you think they're maybe coming around to it.
Look, if the Conservatives are ready to support our doubling of the GST tax credit, that's good news for Canadians. And it's good news for what people sent us to do here, which is to get along and get work done on their behalf. Thank you.
Vous en pensez quoi de la politique albertaine en ce moment, là, avec Daniel Smith qui veut se soustraire des lois fédérales pour l'Alberta?
Mais regarde, on va laisser les conservateurs de l'Alberta décider qui est leur nouveau chef. Moi, mon rôle et notre rôle comme gouvernement, c'est de continuer à indiquer comment l'Alberta et le Canada sont mieux quand ils sont ensemble. Regarde, l'Alberta va être l'engin économique pour la province, pour le pays, pour les prochains 2 ans. Donc, pour moi, c'est une question qu'on est mieux ensemble et que moi, je vais être un ardent défendeur du fédéralisme et le rôle de l'Alberta dans la Confédération.
Vous allez jouer un rôle là-bas, en politique albertaine?
Moi, je joue le rôle comme ministre de l'Alberta en disant qu'on est mieux ensemble. Ça, c'est point à la ligne. C'est la réalité de cheminement de l'Alberta dans la Confédération. Et moi, j'espère, en tant qu'Albertain ministre, que ça continuera de l'être. Merci.
Ça vous inquiète, le climat, là? On a vu Mme Smith qui a fait une image des inspecteurs de l'Agence environnementale, là, un peu une caricature. Est-ce que ça vous inquiète, ce genre de climat-là?
Regarde, on va rester voir qu'est-ce qui se passe avec la chefferie, mais je peux dire que c'est comment normal pour les chefs politiques provinciaux de donner un coup de pied au gouvernement fédéral. C'est comme le vieux trick qu'on utilise pour avoir de l'attention. Mais la démocratie est délicate, notre confédération est délicate et il faut qu'on joue tous ensemble. Moi, quand je fais les porte-à-porte chez moi, les gens ne veulent pas de chicanerie. Ils veulent que nous, comme les députés, comme les parlementaires et entre les gouvernements, qu'on se tient ensemble et qu'on livre la marchandise pour les commettants. Et c'est sur quoi moi je suis misé. Merci. Salut.
Minister Duclos, the Conservatives are now saying that they appear open to supporting the legislation for GST relief that the Liberals have introduced. And I'm wondering what your response is to that.
Finally! Gosh, it took them long enough, right? They voted against every good measure to help support Canadians deal with affordability. So, I mean, you know, we want to be able to do that. And the Conservative record for the past 7 years has been voting against, you know, tax cuts. It's been voting against supporting vulnerable people. So it's about time that they've gotten here. Thanks.
What made you guys decide this morning that you were going to sort of split your support for the Liberals' affordability measures? It seems like a bit of an about-face considering how hard Pierre's been going after it as a package for the last couple of days.
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, we've been very clear on the sense that Canadians who can least afford this inflation crisis, that they should be supported. We have given measures to support them in the sense of reducing taxes, reducing pressure on them. This one as what the Liberals have put forward, I wouldn't say it's ideal, but it is a measure that we would support them in the sense of they're getting back what they paid into the tax system. So they're essentially just getting back some of the taxes that they've already paid. They're getting more of it back. On the other hand, the other measures, there's really, I would agree with you know, Scotiabank and others who have come out and said that these measures would just contribute to the inflation problem itself.
Well, what's the distinction? I mean, isn't giving people more money back the same issue? It's more money in their pocket, therefore it fuels inflation?
I think when you're looking at the lowest income bracket, those that are having the hardest time getting through, you know, because of Justin Trudeau's inflation crisis, giving them some support, especially when what we're doing is giving them back money that they paid through taxes already, so it's essentially a tax cut for them. That's something we would support.
And it doesn't bother you that it's like $2.5 billion worth of new spending? I mean, doesn't that pile onto the deficit?
I think the biggest concern is what this is doing to Canadians, what the higher cost of everything is doing to Canadians. I mean, grocery prices have gone up by 10%. That's the first time in 40 years. And so that is our biggest concern, and that's what we're fighting. Okay? Thank you.
Pourquoi des publicités contre Pierre Paul-Hus?
On a voulu montrer clairement que c'est quelqu'un qui n'est pas du bord des gens. C'est important de savoir ça au journée 1 pour analyser ses décisions. Par exemple, le fait qu'il est contre ce qu'on a obtenu en donnant plus d'argent dans les poches des gens avec la TPS. Il est contre ça parce qu'il est du bord des grandes banques qui sont aussi contre ça. C'est important de montrer clairement nous sommes pour les gens et il est pour les grandes banques.
Est-ce que vous le voyez comme une menace?
Non, pas du tout une menace, mais c'est vraiment important de parler de son bilan pour montrer que c'est quelqu'un qui veut inflammer la colère, mais qui ne propose pas des solutions et au lieu de proposer des solutions qui aident les gens, ils proposent des solutions qui aident les plus riches.
Okay, except this morning the Conservatives said they would support the GST relief bill.
Well, it's important to know that they've been coming out against it regularly. They've said that it's going to increase inflation, and that's been their proposition so far. And if they've changed their mind, it's because we put the pressure on them saying that why are they opposed to this? Because they've been saying the exact opposite up until this moment. And that shows that our pressure is working, showing that they're not in it for people because they've been aligned with the big banks. And that's what their position was up until this change, if this is what they're changing now. We'll wait and see how they vote. But this is a change from how they were clearly positioning themselves before on the side of big banks. Articles are written on it. And it shows that they are now flip-flopping on their position. But before, they were aligning very clearly with the big banks and not in the interest of people. Well, I would say to the leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Paul-Hus, why does he think it's okay that the public has been paying for his dental care for the past 18 years, and he thinks it's wrong for Canadians who don't have coverage to get their teeth looked after? I think that's something he's going to answer to the nearly 9 million Canadians who don't have coverage, who we're going to make sure can take care of their teeth. Thanks.
Healthcare system. Why haven't we seen more urgent action from Ottawa on this file yet?
Well, there is a lot of action, and as you know, I just signed over the summer a $1 billion agreement to support long-term care workers. We also put into place a $2 billion additional transfer for handling surgeries. We know there's approximately 1 million surgeries delayed over the last month because of COVID-19, so that had an impact on not just the patient, but also the healthcare workers themselves who can't do the work that they are there to do. So it's all part of a broader package of support that we're going to continue providing to provinces and territories.
Of course, the provinces and territories have been asking for more funds. Your ministry has been saying we need to see more results. So whose job is it really at the end of the day to make sure Canadians are seeing actual tangible improvements in their healthcare system?
Well, it's about respect for provincial jurisdiction, which is obviously very important. It's about sharing the responsibility, because although there might be a jurisdictional responsibility, competence more aligned with what provinces and territories need to do. No, we share the responsibility of serving the same Canadians with the same dollars. So I'm there to support them. I know their job is difficult, and that healthcare crisis is there because there is a healthcare workers crisis, which has been and is keep being exacerbated by the COVID-19 crisis, and for which we need to do dramatic investments and changes over the long term because our society is aging quickly and we need to be there to support people.
Yeah, just one last
Thank you.
question. Last election, the government promised $3 billion to hire family doctors. Where's that money at?
Minister, Alghabra, what's about secrecy? Why don't you just tell Canadians that we're dropping everything on September 30th and move on? Why is no one willing to confirm this on the record yet?
How can I say something that hasn't happened yet? Like, you're asking me to make an announcement about a decision that has not been taken. So it's not secrecy. We have, as we've demonstrated in the past, a process where we constantly assess and reevaluate our measures, and this process is always ongoing.
How come is it
Thank
so
you.
last minute?
Bonjour. Écoutez, pour toute question concernant C30, C31, je vous invite à écouter la période des questions. Notre chef va adresser le point là-dessus. Olivier? Oui. Oui. Bien, écoutez, pour plusieurs mois, le Parti conservateur a dénoncé l'utilisation politique de l'outil RFCAN. L'outil a pu servir dans les temps forts de la pandémie, mais depuis plusieurs mois, là, on savait que c'était complètement inutile, alors que partout ailleurs dans le monde, il n'y avait pas ce genre de contrôle-là. Et en plus, qu'est-ce qui est très fâchant, c'est qu'on a perdu énormément de touristes. Comme moi, de la région de Québec, des hôteliers, des restaurants disent qu'on a manqué de touristes parce qu'il y avait l'application cet été. Et surtout, les gens qui ont reçu des amendes. Il y a des citoyens qui ne savaient juste pas comment ça fonctionnait, puis ils ont reçu des amendes de 5 à 6 000 $ parce qu'ils ne savaient pas comment l'outil fonctionnait. Donc, je pense qu'il y aurait aussi une révision à faire de ces cas-là.
Mais si effectivement le gouvernement décide d'enlever des cotisations parlementaires, est-ce que vous allez voir ça comme une victoire?
Bien, écoutez, question de victoire, à un moment donné, ce n'est pas nécessairement des jeux politiques. Moi, je pense que c'est plus que cet outil-là, on le dénonçait, que c'était terminé, qu'il fallait cesser de l'utiliser pour toutes les conséquences que ça l'amenait. Là, maintenant, oui, c'est sûr que si le gouvernement finit par comprendre que c'est le temps d'arrêter, on peut le prendre comme une victoire, mais il reste que, de façon logique, ça fait plus de 6 mois qu'on le demandait et on a perdu beaucoup d'argent au Canada parce que le gouvernement s'est entêté à conserver l'outil. T'es good? Merci.
President Biden saying that their estimation is a UN address saying that fertilizer tariffs aren't the main driver of food increasing food costs. Of course, here in Canada, we've got the 35% tariff. What would you say is our main drivers for inflation?
Well, I would say that the main threat to food security is climate change, droughts and floods, like those we've known last year. And we are doing different things to improve the practices in our agriculture so our farmers can be more resilient. I know they are doing already a lot, but we are investing in research and innovation, and we want to be sure that as many of them know about it and can afford new technologies and know about the best practices.
Sentez-vous que les agriculteurs vous appuient en général sur tous vos projets?
Il y a une excellente réception au niveau de nos projets agro-environnementaux. C'est plus de 1,5 milliard de dollars qu'on a annoncé dans les derniers mois pour ces programmes-là, donner des incitatifs financiers directs aux producteurs agricoles pour les aider à accélérer l'adoption de bonnes pratiques, l'accès aux technologies propres, investissement dans la recherche et l'innovation aussi. Donc, il y a une excellente réception. Puis je sens vraiment qu'ils veulent faire plus parce qu'ils font déjà beaucoup. Ils savent à quel point c'est important pour la qualité de la terre. Donc, il y a une belle réception.
Sur la réforme des aliments bio, là, on a vu vos explications ce matin. Pensez-vous que le dossier est clos? Avez-vous quelque chose à dire là-dessus?
Bien, l'Agence canadienne d'inspection des aliments doit faire le travail jusqu'au bout. Mais ce qui est important de dire, c'est qu'à travers cette démarche-là, qui est importante, il faut s'ouvrir aux nouvelles technologies, mais il faut le faire d'une façon où est-ce qu'on ne compromettra pas du tout l'intégrité des certifications biologiques. Merci.
I was wondering if you had a second to chat some fertilizer policy.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So during his UN speech, President Biden saying that fertilizer, food tariffs, it should, Russia's saying that that's the reason we're seeing global inflation there. Pointing to the U.S. Biden said, pointing to the U.S. policy saying their tariffs, they don't affect food, they don't affect fertilizer coming out of Russia. Whereas, of course, we have our 35% tariff on fertilizer right now. Just what's your take on President Biden's messaging on food and fertilizer prices, given what they're seeing and what we're seeing on prices?
So I haven't seen the remarks that you're quoting, but again, our policy here in Canada is on the basis that we don't want to reward Russia in any fashion, that we do have that domestic supply. We take notice that in Eastern Canada we have had to make a transition, and we've been asking fertilizer companies and of course farmers to be able to make that transition with us so that we can support our allies in Ukraine. Certainly, I would point to the fact that on affordability for farmers, we've extended interest-free loans because we have seen that fertilizer prices have gone up as a result of energy supply challenges and the fact that the world is trying to pivot away from Russian supplies. And so we're trying to make sure that the affordability element is at the crux of what we're doing for farmers.
And just on the more domestic fertilizer issue, especially once harvest is wrapped up here, is the government planning any more outreach to farmers? As you can see, a lot flying on fertilizer policy this summer, talking about trying to reduce nitrogen emissions. Just any further outreach plan to try to, because the government's saying there's a lot of misinformation going on. Any efforts to try to dispel some of this? It is definitely a big worry out west. There are farmers.
Well, I'm glad you raise it. We don't have a large rural caucus, as you know, in terms of the composition of the members of Parliament that sit on the Liberal caucus. But certainly myself, the Minister, P.S. Drouin, have been trying to make sure that that message is very clear. I was in Niagara actually to engage with folks with the Ontario Federation of Agriculture and made it very clear that, of course, we have goals of reducing nitrous oxide emissions associated with fertilizer use. Fertilizer Canada themselves had pointed out to an expanded use of 4 hours is going to help us get down that path. But the key message for farmers is that we want to work with them on best management practices to expand the scope of what they're already doing, to support environmental outcomes, to support their fiscal sustainability, and that's the message. I mean, this has got convoluted, I think, particularly, I know it's not the official opposition's job to help us, but they are mistorting the idea that somehow there would be any type of fertilizer ban or that we're going to restrict fertilizer use. Nothing could be farther from the truth.
Just more clarity on what emission caps may look like when it comes to nitrogen-based fertilizers. Of course, you had that Minister Freeland a few weeks ago saying, farmers are smart business people, they're going to do what makes the most economic sense. But still hearing from some people back home, they're wondering, like, well, what does that mean to our bottom line and when they're getting ready to buy fertilizer for next year?
So you mentioned caps. The government has, of course, goals of reducing nitrous oxide emissions, but the Minister Bibeau has been very clear that the government will not be instituting any type of cap in terms of fertilizer use to be able to get towards that. So we're going to be looking at best management practices. We'll be looking at innovation. Now is not the time to be stifling Canadian agriculture. We know that fertilizer is an important element. We know that fertilizer is already being used judiciously by farmers, but we want to make sure that they have the best science and innovation to be able to even reduce that further without compromising yields. So any conversation of caps is not on the table. And of course that message is not being conveyed by Conservative members of Parliament that are trying to, I think, create division and not really explain that that's not what the government's policy is. Again, it's not their job, but let me be very clear. There's no cap coming forward. There's a goal of reducing nitrous oxides through working with farmers on best management practices. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.